Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Burnout to Balance. I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and I am a coach for women in midlife. I have a background in education, and I'm also a certified yoga instructor. I'm also an integrative trauma coach. So I have quite an extensive background on how to help women go from burnout to feeling more balanced. And I also have a lot of experience in my personal life with the topic. So before we dive in, just so you know, the Subtle Shifts community on Facebook is open to anyone who wants more connection, more guidance on this topic with other women in midlife. And all this month, the month of March, I'm going to be hosting coaching calls live for free for anyone who's in the group. The first one is today. So if you're catching this on the replay, you may have missed this first one, but I am going to go ahead and put in the email with this recording the link to the group so you can join. So you will make sure that you will catch the future ones. So go ahead and check that out. And let's go ahead and dive into today's workshop. I am recording this first portion and it's just me talking. I know those of you who are on the call are part of this, but you're not part of this recording. And then I'm going to have a live Q&A after this instructional part, which I will end the recording for. So just for privacy reasons, some people don't want to be on the video. And so I'm going to end this so that those of you who are here live will be able to ask questions and receive some guidance on some of the topics that I am covering in this workshop. So here's what you can expect. By the end of this lesson, experience, workshop, you will have a clear understanding of your stress response. You will have practical tools to help you manage your stress response, and you will have a clear and actionable plan to help bring you back into balance after you attend the workshop. So something to take with you so that you can go ahead and implement this into your life immediately. So before we begin, let's just start with a centering exercise, and I'm going to introduce you to a breathing technique, which is, spoiler alert, one of the things that I'm going to be talking about to help you with your stress response after the workshop. So it's kind of an integrative practice for you to try out right now and see how it lands. So the breathing techniques I'm going to share with you right now is just a guided breathing, but the way it works basically is how I'm going to count the breathing for you. And it's a 4-6 breathing technique. So you're going to be breathing in for 4, and you're going to be breathing out for 6. And what's interesting about this is before I started this workshop and I was feeling a little bit nervous, I sat and I did this for 10 rounds and I felt so much more calm. So not only am I sharing this with you, but this is something I actually practice and works for me. So let's go ahead and do this breathing technique together. So if you are here live, you can go ahead and find a spot where you are feeling comfortable, feeling grounded. You can sit down, you can lie down, basically just make yourself comfortable. And if you are watching on the recording and it's not really a time for you to stop and breathe, you can go ahead and skip over this part, but definitely come back and practice this if you are in a moment where you are able to practice this. It's a really great strategy to help calm your nervous system. So once you get your position, just go ahead and rest your hands in your lap. And you can float your eyes closed, or if it feels more accessible to just look down or find a central point of focus to alleviate the visual distractions. And begin by taking a big breath in through your nose. Breathe out through your mouth. And again, like that, breath in through your nose, fill your belly up. Breath out through your mouth. Now breathe in through your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Out through your nose, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now take 4 more breaths like this, counting inside your head at your own pace. Intentionally making your exhales a little bit longer. Allow the belly to flow up and down as you breathe in and out. And when you've completed your final round, gently open your eyes, come back into the space, and just notice how that felt for you. How did that land in your body? Was it challenging? Did it feel good to you? Is it something you'd like to try again in the future? And this is something you can just put in your back pocket, something you can integrate into your life to help you when you're feeling stressed out and also when you're not. All right, so let me dive in. I'm just going to start by sharing a personal story. So, a few years ago, I was in a point in my life where my schedule was really hectic. I had just taken on a full-time job as a classroom teacher. I also had my own 2 kids. I was also on the board of a volunteer organization. So really, pretty intense, high demand situation there. And I was also teaching a couple of yoga classes a week, and all of that on top of renovating our kitchen in our house. So we weren't even living in our own house. We were living somewhere else temporarily while our kitchen was done. So our house was just like totally like there had been a mess blow up at our house because our kitchen was totally being renovated. And so it was a day, like a full day of work. I came home, I brought my kids home, and I needed to kind of shift gears and turn around to go to a meeting for my volunteer organization. And I was also in charge of providing dinner for everyone in my volunteer board. So it was time for me to go ahead and get everything ready. And I had ordered pizzas to try to keep it easy for myself. I had ordered pizzas that were going to be delivered to where the meeting was going to be held. I had that all in place, and I had changed my clothes, and I was running around looking for my keys so that I could leave because I wanted to be at the place to get the pizzas when they arrived. And I couldn't find my keys. I was frantically looking around. And while I was doing that, I was full on panicking, just tension rising, breath really shortening and quickening, shoulders tense. And I was panicking. Like, what am I going to do if I can't find my keys? I had no other car there that I could drive, and I didn't know what to do. And I just stopped, and I was like feeling like I was going to have a meltdown. And then when I finally found them, they happened to be in the pants pocket of the pants that I'd changed out of. So they were just right there, right where I had put them before I had changed my clothes. And when I found them, I just broke down. I started crying. And I was like relieved, but I was also just like needing to release all of that tension and all of that stress. I had put myself in a position where I was maxed, I was overextended. And at that period of my life, I had trouble saying no. And I had trouble letting go of things that I didn't have space or the capacity to be part of because I didn't want to let other people down. I was carrying it all. So maybe you can relate. Times in your life where you felt maxed out, where you felt like there were so many people needing you, expecting things from you, and you also had high expectations for yourself. And maybe you can relate to how I felt in that moment when I couldn't find my keys, the tension and the stress. Maybe you feel like that right now. And maybe you can relate to the crying and the just release of tension. We've all been there. We've all been in those really tense situations where we're really stressed out and maxed. And so I'm speaking to you today from a place of I 100% have been there. And what I'm going to be teaching you today has really helped me in finding more balance in my life. So before we begin, or I'm going to be sharing with you some slideshows some slides, and I'll also email them to you. So don't feel like while you're watching this, you have to take pictures and take really copious notes because you're going to get a copy of these slides. So first thing I'm going to do here is talk a little bit about the stress response. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, let me go ahead and share my slideshow to help you understand the stress cycle, because understanding it is the best way to be able to address it. So this is your body's normal stress cycle. This is what happens. The stressor appears. So in my example where I was talking about looking for my keys, the stressor was that I couldn't find my keys. Your body's stress response is turned on. So in that situation, I was frantic. I was looking around for the keys. My heart was pumping. My breath was more shallow. My shoulders were tense. My eyes were likely dilated. I was ready to flight. I was in fight or flight mode. Then the stressor is removed. And then the body completes the stress cycle. So I found my keys. The stressor was handled. And when I cried, my body was completing the stress cycle. And then your body goes back into rest and recovery. And if you think about animals in the wild, like there's predators and prey, think about the zebra. The zebra is in the field, just chowing on some grass, and a stressor appears. Let's say a lion appears. The zebra's body is going to go into fight and flight mode, take off running. Hopefully it runs away far enough so that it comes back to safety, and then the stressor is removed. The body has completed the stress cycle because the zebra ran, and then it goes back to rest and recovery. Your body wants to be in rest and recovery. And that's where all of your healing can happen, where all of your digestion happens. That's where rest happens, reconciliation, and that's where balance is. This is a normal stress response. But because we live in a society where sometimes it's not necessarily appropriate to process the stress or to complete the stress cycle in the moment, and then we just don't ever complete the stress cycle, and it just gets trapped in our body. So for example, your boss is yelling at you. You may not feel like crying in that moment. You don't want to cry in front of your boss. You can't just get up and run, right? Your boss might wonder what's going on with you. It's not always socially acceptable for you to process the stress in the moment. On top of that, let me show you the next slide. So many of us are stuck in a chronic stress cycle. So the thing that's causing stress, or the things that are causing stress, are just always there. Like if you have a really stressful job, or something's going on with a family member, there are circumstances in your life, there's circumstances in the world causing stress, and they're not just going to go away. We get stuck in a perpetual cycle of stress. So the stressor appears, your body's stress response is turned on, the stressor remains and there's no completion of the stress cycle because whatever reason, there's not a socially acceptable time to do it. We don't know how, and it just kind of gets trapped. And then your body's stress cycle is just stuck on. It's never resolved. And that's where a lot of chronic health issues can happen. A book I highly recommend checking out is The Body Keeps the Score. It's filled with a lot of really important technical information, but the overall idea is that stress manifests in the body first or eventually over time. So when you're in chronic stress, your body will start to respond. You'll start to have illnesses or injuries, some unexplained, chronic stuff. And it's because of unresolved stress and emotion in your life. That's why completing the stress cycle can be so essential in helping you find a little more balance and homeostasis in your life. So here's how you can do it. The stressor remains. So whatever it is in your life that's causing stress, maybe multiple things, that stressor is there. Your body's stress system is turned on. And whether the stressor is handled or not, you complete the cycle. You allow that cycle to resolve to completion in your body. And then you're able to turn on your restive act, rest and recovery. You're able to turn that back on. That's where you're going to be back into balance. So it doesn't mean that you are constantly always rested and recovered. It means that you know how to get yourself to that place. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today, strategies to be able to do that in your life so that you're not stuck in this chronic stress cycle. So I'm going to be sharing with you some habits that you can integrate into your life to do that. But before I do, I also highly recommend you check out this book, Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily Nagosi and Amelia Nagosi. In this book, they go above and beyond just what the stress cycle is and how to resolve it. They talk a lot about how so many of the stresses that we as women specifically deal with in our lives are societal impositions or just understandings of what it means to be a woman in this world. To be, an overachiever, you need to be a nurturer. So many of us women are holding our own stress, but also taking on the stress of others, overachieving, over helping. So when I was in that position in my life, I was in a really high people pleasing. I didn't want to let anyone down. And I also didn't want to let myself down as a high achiever. So I was taking everything on and I wasn't really sure how to say no yet. I wasn't able to set boundaries in my life. And so it was just kind of piling on top of each other. And that was my need to be everything to everyone at the cost of my own well-being. So it's because I had internalized that a good mom is someone who volunteers. A good mom is someone who works and brings in money. A good mom is the one who makes dinner at night, volunteers, does all those things. And I was taking it all on as like, this is just the way a good mom is. But at the same time, I wasn't able to be a good mom because I was taking too much on and I wasn't in that balanced state and able to be fully present for other people in my life. So it's kind of like a catch-22. So check out that book. And I'm going to walk you through some effective ways to complete the stress cycle so you can be a little more proactive with it. And if you're here live, you don't have to take notes because I'm going to be sending this slideshow in the email with the recording. So you can just have it. You'll have this with you so you don't have to worry about taking notes. Okay. The first one is physical activity. And that can be in the form of exercise, walking, yoga, movement, just moving your body, moving your large muscle groups. And it helps you process some of that emotion. And like if you think about the zebra who's running, all the muscles, the fast twitch muscles are firing and it's getting that energy out. So when you have physical exercise, you're doing that. You're allowing your body to do that. So when I ride the Peloton, sometimes I'll just start crying in the middle of a class and I don't even know what I'm crying about. It's like just tears start to flow out of nowhere. And it's amazing because what's happening is my body is naturally expressing emotions from a stress cycle. It's like finishing a stress cycle because I'm moving my body and it's allowing it to flow. And so I just allow it. I mean, I'm on the bike in my garage. Nobody's looking at me. So I allow it to flow through. And then I always feel better after. It's like just allowing that to process. So finding ways that feel accessible to you. That doesn't mean it has to be like a really intense workout, like a Peloton ride. It can also just be moving in your garden, getting around, walking outside, cleaning the house is another really great way to move your body. You're moving the big muscles, right? It's not just your arms or your hands and your head. Like you want to move your big muscles, physical exercise. So some of you maybe already have physical activity as part of your routine, but if you don't, this is one of the most effective ways to help manage stress. At the beginning of this workshop, I guided you through a breathing technique, and that is number 2. Another really great way to process stress and to complete the stress cycle. I will say that if you're in the middle of a stress response, a breathing technique might not be accessible to you because in our lives, when we're in a stress response, our breathing is often up here in our chest because we're in a fight or flight situation. So we may not be able to access the diaphragmatic deep breathing in a stress response. So when I did this breathing technique before this workshop started, I was able to breathe into my belly and it was effective for me to calm me down. But be aware that that may not be accessible to you and it might actually exacerbate the stress because you are breathing in your chest, which will make you feel even more activated. Breathing is a great thing to do proactively. So finding time in your schedule where you can integrate proactive deep breathing. And there's so many different styles of breathing, but the idea is that you're slowly breathing, you're taking in the deep breaths, you're breathing into your belly, diaphragmatic breathing, and it's really effective if you can make your exhales longer than your inhales. Because when you're in a stress response, your inhales and your exhales are quick. So if you're slowing down your breath, you're sending a message to your brain from your body that you are safe. So when you practice this, when you are not stressed, it's easier to access when you are. So breathing breaks, paced breathing, that's what I did at the beginning of this class, abdominal breathing, 4-4-8 breathing, and just simple yoga breathing. So if you're taking yoga classes regularly, you're already doing this. Positive social interaction. Being able to connect with other people in an uplifting way, it basically sends a message to your nervous system that you live in a safe place, that you are safe, that the world is a safe place. And that's what your nervous system needs to be reminded. So finding friends, finding communities, book clubs, religious organizations, places where you feel connected with other people and you are uplifted by their presence. And sometimes it might just be going to Trader Joe's and letting the checker ask you questions about what you're doing that day. When you have those like really uplifting or just short kind of positive social interactions, the more you can have those in your life, the less scary the world can feel, the less isolating the world can feel. So being more intentional about bringing those positive social interactions into your life. And I'm actually starting something coming up real soon that's really aligned with positive social interaction. So hold on to the end and I'm going to share that with you. The next one is laughter, which, makes sense. When you laugh, you feel good, right? It feels good to laugh. But the other key component with it is laughter also stimulates your vagus nerve, which is the 10th cranial nerve, and it's in charge of your fight or flight response. So when you're laughing, you're stimulating your vagus nerve, and that also helps you with your long-term stress response, being able to manage that. And it's also breathing. When you're laughing, you're breathing. It's like stimulating your diaphragm. So not only is it something that's happening to your physiological system, it could potentially be linked to a social interaction. And it's also helping you stay proactive about managing your stress response. So if you don't have people around you to laugh with, watching something funny on TV can be a really great thing. Listening to a podcast that makes you laugh, anything that brings a little joy into your life. Laughter. Number 5 is affection. I have 2 dogs in my house, and if you have dogs, you know, dogs are just going to love you no matter what. And they love pets. They love hugs. Some dogs love snuggles. I know mine does. And it's a really great way to express affection. And being able to connect deeper with a person, if you have a person in your life, you can hug and support one another in an affectionate way. But if you don't have anyone in your life, animals are really great beings for you to be affectionate with. It helps calm your nervous system, create a sense of safety, a sense of well-being, and presence. I actually volunteer at a dog shelter. I walk the shelter dogs once a week, and those dogs need affection more than anything. And so it fills my cup, and it's also not draining to me. Like I have to take care of this dog in and out every day. I can just be there present with that dog in that moment, providing positive interaction, giving them pets, playing with a ball. And I do that just it's for my own well-being, but it's also for theirs. So finding ways to being able to express affection is a really great way to complete the stress response. Creative self-expression. So if you do creative things like painting, drawing, writing, playing music is a really great one. I crochet. Being able to channel some of that stressful energy into something creative where you're making something, it can also feel very productive. It really does lower your cortisol levels, and it's a really great habit and practice to get into. And it can help you process some of those big emotions too. Sometimes when you're doing something creative, you might get into a flow state, which is also like a meditation where you're just fully present in what you're doing, which is also a really great way to stimulate the vagus nerve. And then the last one I'm going to share is crying. So one of the things about crying is that there are so many messages out there that many of us have received over the years that crying equals weakness, or crying is something to hide or to avoid or to suppress because it's wrong or bad. And some of us don't know how to cry or don't know how to allow that to happen. But it really is a central part of being a human being. I actually read somewhere that the tears that you cry are actually different based on what it is that you're crying about. It's like different hormones are released based on what kind of crying you're doing. It's just fascinating how the body works that way. But if you are somebody who represses or suppresses crying, just get curious about why and allow it to happen. Find a place where you feel like you're safe to do so. In your car, in the shower is a really great spot, and just let it flow. Give yourself the opportunity to let it flow. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share, and what I would love to know is on this list, was there anything that stood out to you that you're already doing? I'd love for you to share in the chat. Is there anything in there that you're already doing that you feel like you'd like to continue doing? Or is there something in here that you would like to integrate? So just go ahead and type in the chat, like what stood out to you? What is it that you are already doing? Any aha moments, okay? So just share with us in the chat. Oh, yeah. Already exercising and wanting to continue with that. And that's so good because instead of looking at this list and thinking, oh, great, now I need to integrate all these other things into my life. If you're already exercising, continue to do that. And then just have the lens of this is also me processing my stress. It's not just me wanting to look good in my outfits. It's not just me wanting to build muscle, be strong, all of those things. It's you being able to process your emotions and just going into it intentionally with that as well. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you liked the breathing technique. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, so good. Definitely integrate that if it felt good to you. And there are lots of apps there. If you are not really wanting to guide yourself in breathing techniques, there's so many different apps out there where you can have a guided visual to help you with the counting. And there's also audible type things where you can listen to it and be guided through that. You don't have to do it on your own. Oh, you like Trader Joe's too. It's funny. Trader Joe's is like every time I go to Trader Joe's, it's just a positive experience. I don't look forward to going to other stores, but for some reason, the people there are just so nice. Yeah, breathing. Good, good, good. Okay. Okay. Now it's time to integrate this into your life. So, what I want you to do is pick one thing on this list that you are either going to start doing or continue doing with the intention of letting it be processing your stress response and completing the stress cycle. So just choose one thing that feels accessible, and then you're going to integrate it into your life in a way that feels also doable. I know so many of us are so busy in our lives, thinking of figuring out where to fit in a 10-minute breathing technique can feel overwhelming, even if it's something you really want to do. So there's a process called habit stacking that can help you stick with it a little more. So basically what you do is you take something in your life that you're already doing, a habit you've already done and you don't even really have to think about, and you just add this habit onto it. So you finish brushing your teeth and then you do a breathing technique. So you don't have to think about it. One of the reasons why we have so much trouble sticking with new habits is because it's like a brand new thing that we really have to think about. The less we have to think about it, the more likely it is we're going to stick to it. So like I said, brushing your teeth or first thing in the morning after going to the bathroom, when you get home from work and you're sitting in your car, after you clean up the dishes from dinner, right before you set your alarm, things that you're already doing, you're just stacking this new habit onto it. If it's not something that's already a habit, and then just decide what you're going to do. None of this is set in stone. So let's say you pick a breathing technique and you say you're going to stack it onto this habit of before you set your alarm and you're not sticking to it. In that situation, instead of just stopping, get curious with yourself. What about this isn't working for me? What about this can I shift? What else might I be able to try? And then play around with it. Like let it be fun, because when you're hard on yourself, that's not going to benefit your nervous system and it's not going to make it fun for you. And it's also going to be harder for you to stick with. So get creative, get curious, and let it be a moving thing. It's not always going to be the same forever and ever. Okay, so pick that one thing. And then what I want you to do is you're going to write it down. You're going to write down what you're going to do and when. And then you're going to figure out how you're going to stay accountable to it. Sometimes having a person check in with you can be helpful, but a lot of my clients like to schedule reminders on their phone where they'll get a notification to do something at a certain time. And they'll just make sure that they have that on their phone so that they can remember it. Or they have a to-do list, or they have like a checklist of things that they do every day, and then they put that on there so that they can make sure they're taking care of it and they're sticking with it. So write it down and then figure out how you're going to stay accountable. And then while you're here, plug it into your phone. Text the person that's going to keep you accountable. Do the thing that's going to keep that action going so that when you get off of this call, it's not just something you forget and you're like, oh, I'll get to it when I can. I'll watch that later. I'll do this later. Do it now so that when you walk away from this recording, when you walk away from this workshop, you already have it set in stone and you don't have to think about it. It's already there. And then when you've done that, type a little 1 in the chat to let us know that you've done it. We'll help you stay accountable. Okay. Wow, you guys are fast. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you're going to do it tonight. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. The sooner you start it, the better, right? Just let it be part of your new routine. Okay, good. Okay, so then I gave you a little background on the stress response. I talked about ways for you to complete the stress cycle. And then I had you choose one way to integrate into your life. Just let it be one moving forward. And you're all set. So before we get to the Q&A, as I am sharing with you, one of the things that I mentioned that is essential for our well-being is connection and having positive social interaction. And I've made it one of my big intentions for this year is to bring women together in community. And that's something I'm doing in the Subtle Shifts community on Facebook. If you're not part of that, definitely join it. I'm going to put a link in the email that I'm sending out so you can join if you're not already a member. And then I'm also going to, for this entire month of March, I'm going to be hosting live coaching calls where I share a little something and we can support one another and receive coaching, and it's all completely free. And I'm also going to be rolling out a group program that is really addressing all of these things that I've been talking about. Having a connection with other people, personal development, and it's really going to be geared toward women in midlife who have had a certain identity for a long time. That's been great, whether that be mom, employee, wife, spouse, partner. And they're at a phase right now where maybe they're shifting into a new identity. That doesn't mean that their old identity was wrong or bad. It's just circumstances have changed. Maybe kids have grown, or retirement and things like that have happened, or maybe growing out of a position or growing out of a former identity, and maybe just not being sure about what's next. And also addressing those patterns that have really kept us in potentially a burnout and a stress response, being able to learn how to manage that through connection and community and coaching and strategies, practical techniques, so that you can really enter the next phase of this part of your life feeling more content, more joyful, more connected, and like it's the best years of your life, because why not? Right. And that's what this group is going to be about. And so if this is resonating with you, if it sounds like something you'd like to learn a little more about, I'm going to be sharing a link to get on my calendar just to hear a little bit more specifics and also talk about where you are in your life just to see if it's a fit. And we'll get on a call, we'll just talk, we'll connect, we'll see if it's a fit, and potentially this is something that you could use moving forward. So definitely get on my calendar if that's resonating with you, and we'll talk. So thank you for being here. Those of you who are here live, I'm going to do Q&A, but if you're watching the recording, thanks for tuning in. And this is yours to keep. You can watch it over and over and over. And I hope it was helpful. I would love to see you in the Subtle Shifts coaching community, and I appreciate you being here.